Kim Tae-ho wiped the sweat from his forehead as he walked down the long metal hallway of Luna Station. The Space Academy always felt cold, but today seemed different. Maybe it was because of the big test coming up. He had been a cadet for 3 years now, and this was his last chance to prove he could be a real space captain. The other cadets were already waiting in the briefing room when he arrived. Park So-jin sat quietly in the front row, reading something on her tablet. She always studied harder than anyone else. Next to her, Lee Dong-woo was taking apart a small device and putting it back together. His hands moved so fast that Tae-ho could barely see what he was doing. Choi Yuna was talking to Han Ji-sung near the back of the room. She spoke in 3 different languages within 1 minute, which made Ji-sung shake his head and laugh. Ji-sung preferred numbers and calculations over words. He could hit any target with perfect aim, but ask him to speak alien languages like Yuna, and he would just stare blankly. "Attention, cadets." Commander Martinez walked into the room with heavy steps. His uniform was perfectly clean, and his face looked serious like always. The 5 cadets quickly stood up and saluted. "Today you will face your final simulation test," Martinez said, looking at each of them. "This is a level 7 exercise. That means it will be harder than anything you have done before." Tae-ho felt his heart beat faster. Level 7 was the highest difficulty they had heard about. Most cadets never got past level 5. "You will command the training ship Horizon's Edge," Martinez continued. "Your mission is simple. Defeat an alien fleet that has entered human space. The enemy uses advanced technology and battle tactics. They will not go easy on you." So-jin raised her hand. "Sir, how many enemy ships will we face?" "That information is classified until you begin," Martinez replied. "But I will tell you this. They are unlike any enemy you have studied. They have weapons and strategies that might surprise you." Dong-woo stopped playing with his device. "What kind of weapons, sir?" "You will find out soon enough, Cadet Lee." Martinez walked to a large screen on the wall. "Your ship has been prepared with standard Academy equipment. Nothing special. No super weapons or shields that do not exist in real life." Yuna looked confused. "Sir, if this is just a simulation, why does that matter?" Martinez paused for a moment. Something strange crossed his face, but it was gone so quickly that none of the cadets noticed. "The Academy wants these tests to be as real as possible. If you cannot win with normal equipment, you are not ready for actual space battles." Ji-sung nodded. This made sense to him. Real soldiers did not get magic weapons in real fights. "You have 30 minutes to prepare," Martinez said. "Study your ship's systems. Plan your strategy. When the simulation begins, you will have no help from instructors or computers. You must work together as a team." The cadets spent the next 30 minutes in the ship's preparation room. The Horizon's Edge was a small vessel designed for training. It had basic weapons, simple shields, and engines that were fast but not very powerful. Nothing fancy or special. Tae-ho gathered his team around a table with ship blueprints. "So-jin, you will handle navigation and strategy. Dong-woo, you take care of engines and repairs. Yuna, you manage communications and try to learn about the enemy. Ji-sung, you control all weapons." "What about you?" So-jin asked. "I will be captain and make the big decisions," Tae-ho said. "If we work together, we can beat any simulation." As they walked toward their ship, none of the cadets knew about the problem happening far away in the Academy's computer center. Lieutenant Park Min-ho was staring at his screen with growing worry. Something was wrong with the quantum communication system. This cannot be right, Minho said to himself. He pressed buttons and checked the readings again. The training simulation was supposed to connect to Academy Computer Bank 7, which contained practice enemy ships and battle scenarios. Instead, the system was connecting to something else entirely. The readings showed a connection to real space, somewhere near the Centauri system. Minho tried to fix the problem, but the quantum signals had already locked onto their target. He reached for his emergency communicator to call Commander Martinez, but then stopped. Maybe he was reading the data wrong. The cadets were just starting their test. If he interrupted now for a false alarm, it would ruin their final examination. He decided to watch the simulation closely and call for help only if something really went wrong. Meanwhile, the 5 cadets entered their training ship. Everything looked normal. The control panels lit up when they touched them. The engines hummed quietly in the background. The main screen showed empty space with stars in the distance. "Beginning Level 7 simulation," the computer announced in a calm voice. "Enemy contact expected in 10 minutes. Taeho sat in the captain's chair and looked around at his team. So-Jin was already checking star maps and planning routes. Dong-Woo had opened an engine panel and was making small improvements. Yuna was testing the communication systems and practicing alien greetings she had learned in class. Ji-Sung was calibrating the weapons with careful precision. "This feels different," So-Jin said quietly. "The star patterns look more detailed than usual. The Academy probably upgraded the graphics," Dong-Woo replied without looking up from his work. "Level 7 simulations are supposed to be super realistic." None of them knew that their ship had just entered real space, and somewhere in the darkness, between stars, actual alien vessels were detecting their presence. The HFY War fleet had been patrolling this area for weeks, looking for signs of human expansion. When the sensors picked up the small human ship, War Commander Kethvar was puzzled. The vessel appeared to be alone and not very powerful. But it had entered Vaxari territory without permission and seemed to be heading directly toward their position. "Foolish humans," Kethvar said to his officers. "They send one small ship to challenge an entire war fleet. Perhaps they think we are weak." The Vaxari had conquered many worlds and defeated dozens of species. They were proud warriors who respected strength and despised weakness. A single human ship entering their space could only mean one thing: a challenge to battle. "Prepare for combat," Kethvar ordered. "Show these humans what happens when they underestimate the Vaxari Empire." Back on the horizon's edge, the cadets watched their screen as small dots appeared in the distance. "Enemy ships detected," the computer announced. "Beginning engagement." Taeho smiled. Finally, the real test was starting. The first thing that surprised Taeho was how many ships appeared on their screen. Instead of the usual 5 or 6 enemy vessels in training simulations, he counted more than 20. They were arranged in a perfect battle formation, like a real military fleet. "Wow," So-Jin whispered, staring at her navigation display. The Academy really went all out for this test. The enemy ships looked different too. Each one had a unique design with strange curves and spikes. They were not the simple geometric shapes that the training computers usually created. These vessels had details that seemed almost artistic, like someone had spent years designing each one. "Communication incoming," Yuna announced. She pressed a button, and alien sounds filled the bridge. It was unlike any language in her textbooks. The voice was deep and rough, with clicking noises between words. "Can you understand any of it?" Taeho asked. Yuna frowned and shook her head. "It sounds like a real alien language, not the simple ones we practice with." The computer must be using some advanced program I have never heard before. What Yuna did not know was that she was listening to War Commander Kethvar speaking in the ancient Vaxari war dialect. He was giving the humans one chance to surrender before destroying their ship. "Attention, human vessel," Kethvar's message continued in broken human language. "You have entered Vaxari space without permission. Surrender now or face the consequences of war." The translation came through their computer system, but it sounded robotic and strange. Tejo looked at his team and grinned. "They are really trying to make this scary," he said. "The voice acting is pretty good. What should we tell them?" Ji-sung checked his weapons display. "All systems are ready. Should I start shooting?" "Wait," Sojin said, studying the enemy formation. "Something is strange about their movement patterns. Usually, simulation ships move in predictable ways. These ones seem to be making decisions based on what we do." She was right. The Vaxari fleet was responding to every small movement the Horizon's Edge made. When the human ship turned left, some alien vessels moved to block escape routes. When it slowed down, others prepared to attack. It was like playing chess against a real opponent instead of a computer. "The AI must be really advanced," Dongwu said. He was watching his engine readings with confusion. "Also, my power systems are showing fluctuations I have never seen before. Everything feels more sensitive than usual." Tejo made his decision. "Yuna, send them a message. Tell them we do not surrender to anyone." Yuna spoke into her microphone using the most official voice she could manage. "This is the Terran vessel Horizon's Edge. We do not recognize your authority in this space. Prepare for battle." On the Vaxari flagship, Kethvar listened to the translation with growing anger. The humans were not just refusing to surrender. They were claiming that Vaxari space belonged to them. This was an insult that demanded immediate response. "All ships, attack Formation 7, Kethvar ordered. "Show these arrogant humans the power of the Vaxari Empire." The alien fleet began to move. The cadets watched in amazement as the enemy ships split into 3 groups. One group came straight toward them. Another group circled around to attack from the side. The third group stayed back, probably to provide support. "This is incredible," Sojin said. "I have never seen simulation AI this sophisticated. They are using real military tactics." What she did not realize was that she was watching actual Vaxari battle strategies that had conquered star systems. Formation 7 was designed to crush enemy morale by demonstrating overwhelming force from multiple directions. "Incoming weapons fire," Ji-sung announced. The first alien attack was unlike anything the cadets had experienced in training. Instead of simple laser beams or missiles, the Vaxari used gravitational weapons that twisted space around their target. The Horizon's Edge shook violently as reality itself seemed to bend and stretch. "What was that?" Dongwu shouted, holding onto his control panel. "Gravity weapons are theoretical. They do not exist yet." "Apparently they do in Level 7 simulations," Tejo replied, trying to keep his balance. "Can you adapt our shields?" Dongwu's fingers flew across his controls. In a real situation, what he was attempting would be impossible. But since he thought this was just a training exercise, he tried modifications that no sane engineer would attempt on an actual ship. He rerouted power through backup systems and overloaded the shield generators beyond safe limits. Somehow it worked. The next gravitational attack hit their shields and scattered harmlessly into space. "How did you do that?" Sojin asked in amazement. "I have no idea," Dongwu admitted. "I just tried everything I could think of. On the Vaxari ships, The officers were equally confused. Their gravitational minds had never failed against any enemy. The weapons were designed to work against all known shield technologies. How had one small human ship found a way to stop them? "Try the plasma storm generators," Kethvar ordered. The second Vaxari attack created a cloud of superheated gas around the human ship. The plasma was hot enough to melt most metals and designed to cook enemy crews alive inside their vessels. The horizon's edge disappeared into a bright orange cloud. "We are surrounded by fire," Yuna reported. But she did not sound scared. "This simulation is really amazing. Look how realistic the flames look." Tejo studied his tactical display. The plasma storm was blocking their view, but it was also hiding them from enemy sensors. He got an idea that would have terrified any real space captain. "Dongwu, can you make our engines run hotter than normal?" "How much hotter?" Dongwu asked. "Hot enough to ignite this plasma around us." Sojin looked at him like he was crazy. "That would create an explosion. We would be destroyed." "Not if we use the explosion to push us forward," Tejo explained. "Like riding a wave." It was a completely insane plan. No real military would ever try to surf an explosion in space. But since the cadets thought they were in a safe simulation, Dongwu began overloading their engines. The result surprised everyone, including the Vaxari. Instead of being destroyed by the plasma storm, the human ship burst out of it like a bullet fired from a gun. The explosion pushed them forward at incredible speed, straight toward the enemy formation. "Impossible," one of Kethvar's officers whispered. "They used our own weapon to gain speed. No species has ever thought of such a thing." The human ship was now moving too fast for the Vaxari to track properly. Ji-sung took advantage of their confusion and began firing at the closest enemy vessels. Since he thought this was just a game, he aimed for what looked like weak points in their armor. He had no way of knowing that his targets were actual structural vulnerabilities that the Vaxari had kept secret for centuries. No enemy had ever discovered these weak spots because they were hidden behind layers of armor that looked solid. But Ji-sung was not trying to penetrate armor. He was aiming for areas that looked different or interesting, like a person playing a puzzle game. His shots hit joints between armor plates and power connections that were invisible to most sensors. One by one, Vaxari ships began to lose power or develop system failures. Each successful hit made Kethvar more confused and worried. How did these humans know about weaknesses that even the Vaxari engineers tried to keep secret? "Sir," one of his officers reported, "the human ship is moving in an attack pattern we have never seen before. Our computers cannot predict where they will go next." This was because Tae-ho was not following any attack pattern. He was making decisions based on what seemed fun or interesting, like a student taking a test who chooses answers that sound good. "Try to ram them," Sojin suggested. "Our ship is small and fast. We might be able to slip between their bigger vessels." In real combat, ramming attacks were suicide missions. But in a simulation, it seemed like an exciting way to get points. Tae-ho turned their ship toward the largest enemy vessel and pushed the engines to maximum speed. The Vaxari flagship was the size of a small city, covered with weapons and armor. Seeing the tiny human ship racing toward them should have been amusing. Instead, Kethvar felt a chill of fear. These humans fought like creatures with no sense of self-preservation. They used tactics that defied logic and seemed to know secrets about Vaxari technology that should have been impossible to discover. As the horizon's edge charged toward his flagship, Kethvar began to wonder if he had made a terrible mistake by challenging these strange beings. The horizon's edge raced toward the massive Vaxari flagship like a tiny bird attacking a giant. Tejo watched the enemy ship grow larger on his screen until it filled the entire view. At the last possible moment, he pulled up sharply, skimming. "Across the surface of the alien vessel! Now, Ji-sung!" he shouted. Ji-sung fired every weapon they had at point-blank range. The shots hit the flagship's shield generators, which were never designed to be attacked from so close. Sparks and explosions lit up the alien ship's hull as its protective barriers failed. "Direct hit!" Ji-sung reported with excitement. "Their shields are down." On the Vaxari flagship, alarms were screaming. Officers ran back and forth trying to understand how a small training vessel had managed to disable their primary defenses. The shield generators were located in the most protected part of the ship, surrounded by layers of armor and energy fields. "How did they know where to target?" demanded Sub-Commander Veltar, Kethvar's second-in-command. "Those generators are hidden from all known scanning methods." Kethvar had no answer. The humans seemed to possess knowledge about Vaxari ship design that even most Vaxari did not have. Every attack hit exactly where it would cause the most damage, as if the enemy had studied their vessels for years. What the Vaxari did not understand was that Ji-sung was not using advanced knowledge. He was simply shooting at things that looked important or interesting. The shield generators happened to be covered with glowing crystals that seemed like obvious targets to someone who played video games. "They are coming around for another attack," Veltar reported. Indeed, the human ship had completed a loop and was heading back toward them. But instead of attacking the flagship again, it suddenly changed direction and flew straight into the middle of the Vaxari formation. "Are they insane?" one of the alien officers asked. Sojin was navigating the ship through a forest of enemy vessels, each one larger and more heavily armed than their small craft. She treated it like an obstacle course, weaving between the alien ships with quick turns and sudden stops. "This is so much fun!" she called out, pulling the ship into a spiral that took them under a Vaxari cruiser and over a destroyer. The physics engine in this simulation is incredible. The Vaxari ships were not designed to fight enemies that moved like this. Their weapons were built for long-range battles between large fleets, not for dogfights with tiny, fast opponents. Every time they tried to shoot at the human ship, they risked hitting their own vessels instead. "Warning!" Dongwu announced. "Engine temperature is getting too high. If we keep flying like this, we might overheat." "Can you fix it?" Tejo asked. Dongwu thought for a moment. In a real ship, overheating engines would mean death for everyone on board. But since this was just a simulation, he decided to try something creative. "I can vent the excess heat directly into space," he said. "It might create some interesting visual effects." He opened the heat vents and released superheated gas from their engines. The result was a glowing trail that followed their ship like the tail of a comet. It looked beautiful and dramatic, which was exactly what Dongwu had hoped for. But the heat trail had an unexpected effect on the Vaxari. In their culture, warriors who fought with fire trailing behind them were considered blessed by the war gods. Seeing the human ship blazing across space like a divine messenger made some of the alien crews hesitate to fire. "They move like spirits," whispered one Vaxari gunner, lowering his weapons. Yuna noticed that some of the enemy ships had stopped shooting. "I think they are impressed by our flying," she said. "Maybe I should try talking to them again." She opened a communication channel and began speaking in the few alien words she had learned from her linguistics classes. Unfortunately, she mixed up several different languages, creating a message that made no sense to most species. But one of the phrases she used happened to be an ancient Vaxari greeting that roughly translated to, "May your ancestors watch over your battle." It was something that only someone with deep knowledge of their culture would know. The effect on the Vaxari fleet was immediate. How did these humans know their sacred battle prayers? Were they some kind of warrior priests who had studied Vaxari traditions for generations? "Sir," Veltar said to Kethvar, "the humans just blessed our battle in the old tongue. They show respect for our ancestors." Kethvar felt his certainty wavering. These were not typical enemies. They fought with impossible courage, knew secret weaknesses in Vaxari technology, and spoke their ancient language. Perhaps they were dealing with something far more dangerous than a simple human patrol. Meanwhile, the cadets were having the time of their lives. The simulation was more exciting and challenging than anything they had experienced before. Every few minutes brought a new surprise or obstacle to overcome. "Look at that asteroid field," Sojin said, pointing to a cluster of rocks floating nearby. "I bet we could use it for cover." "Are you sure?" Teho asked. "Those asteroids look pretty dense. It might be dangerous to fly through them." "Come on," Sojin replied with a grin. "When will we get another chance to try something like this? It is just a simulation." She guided their ship into the asteroid field at full speed. The Vaxari fleet followed, but they moved much more carefully. Asteroids could damage even their heavily armored vessels, so they had to reduce speed and pick their path cautiously. The human ship, however, flew through the rocks like it was playing a game. Sojin treated each asteroid as a fun challenge, using them to hide from enemy fire or to change direction suddenly. She even used their gravity to slingshot around larger rocks, gaining speed while the Vaxari struggled to keep up. "This is impossible," Veltar muttered, watching his sensors. No pilot could navigate that field at such speed. Their ship should have been destroyed a dozen times by now. What he did not know was that Sojin had spent countless hours playing space racing games in the Academy's recreation center. To her, flying through an asteroid field was just like her favorite video game, except with better graphics. As they emerged from the far side of the asteroid field, Dongwu made an announcement. "I have been studying the enemy ship designs while we were flying. I think I can hack into their computer systems." "How?" Teho asked. "Their communication signals are using quantum encryption, but the patterns look familiar. It is similar to the practice codes we use in advanced computer class." This was another impossible coincidence. The Vaxari quantum encryption was based on mathematical principles that human scientists had only recently discovered. But those same principles were being taught to Academy students as theoretical exercises. Dongwu began typing commands into his console, treating the alien computer systems like a complex homework assignment. Within minutes, he had gained access to data that should have been impossible to obtain. "I am in," he announced proudly. "I can see their fleet composition, battle plans, and even personal files on their commanders." The information that appeared on his screen was incredible. The Vaxari had detailed maps of dozens of star systems, records of battles with other alien species, and technology specifications that human scientists would have paid fortunes to see. "Save everything," Teho ordered. "The instructors will want to see how much data we can gather during the simulation." As Dongwu downloaded the Vaxari military database, alarms began ringing throughout the enemy fleet. Their most secret information was being copied by the humans, but their security systems could not figure out how to stop it. "They have breached our core networks." A Vaxari technician reported in panic. All classified data is being accessed. Kethvar felt a cold fear growing in his chest. In over 200 years of military service, he had never encountered an enemy capable of such things. These humans were not just brave or lucky. They possessed technological abilities that seemed almost magical. "Sir," another officer reported, "long-range sensors are detecting additional human ships approaching our position. It appears to be a full battle fleet." The reinforcements were actually the Academy instructors and real military officers who had finally realized what was happening. But to the Vaxari, it looked like the humans had been playing with them while their main force moved into position for a devastating attack. Kethvar looked at the tactical display and saw his situation, clearly for the first time. His fleet was scattered, damaged, and demoralized. Their computer systems had been compromised, and their secret battle tactics had proven useless against human unpredictability. Worse, the approaching human fleet would arrive within the hour. If a single small training vessel had caused this much damage, what could an entire battle fleet do? For the first time in his long military career, War Commander Kethvar began to consider the possibility of surrender. Back at the Academy, Lieutenant Park Min-ho was frantically trying to understand what his instruments were telling him. The quantum communication readings showed impossible energy signatures coming from the training simulation. Something was very wrong. "Computer, show me the current status of Training Exercise 7 Alpha," he commanded. The screen filled with data that made his blood run cold. Power consumption was at 400% of normal levels. The simulation was drawing energy like a reel. Space battle, not a computer program. Worse, his sensors were detecting actual quantum signatures from the Centauri system. "This cannot be happening," Min-ho whispered. He grabbed his emergency communicator and called Commander Martinez. "Martinez here," came the reply. "Sir, we have a major problem with the Cadets simulation. I think they are not fighting computer programs. The readings suggest they are connected to real space." There was a long pause before Martinez responded. "Are you certain?" "Yes, sir. The energy patterns are all wrong for a simulation, and I am detecting quantum echoes from an actual battle happening 12 light-years away." "Mother of stars," Martinez breathed. "How is that possible?" "I do not know, sir. But if I am right, 5 cadets in a training ship are somehow fighting a real alien fleet. Meanwhile, on the horizon's edge, the cadets were celebrating their success. They had managed to survive in the asteroid field, hack enemy computers, and damage several alien ships. The simulation was proving to be the most exciting test they had ever taken. "I have an idea," Yuna said suddenly. "What if we try to boost morale by playing some music? In war movies, the good guys always have inspiring songs." "That sounds fun," Taeho agreed. "Do you have anything good?" Yuna scrolled through her personal music collection and found a recording that her little sister had made at school. It was a group of children singing traditional Earth songs, including lullabies and folk tunes from different countries. "This might work," she said. "It is peaceful music. Maybe it will confuse the enemy AI and make them think we are not taking this seriously." She activated the ship's external communication system and began broadcasting the children's songs on all frequencies. The sweet voices of young humans singing about flowers, friendship, and bedtime stories filled the space around the battle. The effect on the Vaxari fleet was immediate and profound. In their culture, children were considered sacred and were never exposed to violence or war. The idea of bringing young ones near a battle was so unthinkable that many Vaxari would rather die than allow it. But here were the humans, broadcasting the voices of their children directly into a combat zone. To the Vaxari, this could only mean one of two things. Either the humans were so confident in victory that they felt completely safe, or they were so devoted to battle that they included their young ones in warfare rituals. By the ancient codes, Sub-Commander Veltar whispered, they bring their cubs to war. What manner of species does such a thing? On the Vaxari flagship, War Commander Kethvar listened to the children's songs with growing horror. The voices were innocent and pure, singing about simple joys and peaceful dreams. Yet they came from a ship that had just devastated his fleet with impossible tactics and superior technology. "Sir," one of his officers reported with a shaking voice, "the human children are singing a lullaby about sleeping under the stars. They are not afraid." This was perhaps the most terrifying thing the Vaxari had heard all day. Human children, somehow present at a battle that would determine the fate of two civilizations, were singing peaceful songs as if nothing dangerous was happening. What kind of warriors are these humans? Kethvar asked himself. What kind of society creates beings who feel safe in any situation? The answer, in his mind, could only be that humans were so powerful and successful in war that they had never known true fear. Their children sang in battle because they had never experienced defeat. While the alien fleet struggled with this psychological impact, Dongwu was making another discovery. His scan of the hacked Vaxari databases had revealed technical specifications. That seemed almost too good to be true. "Look at this," he said, sharing his findings with the team. "These alien ships have a critical weakness in their power distribution systems. If we target the right components, we could disable their entire fleet with just a few shots." What Dongwu had found was a real design flaw that Vaxari engineers had been trying to fix for decades. The power systems in their ships were interconnected, in a way that made them efficient but vulnerable to cascade failures. One damaged component could cause problems throughout the entire vessel. "Are you sure about this?" Jisung asked, studying the technical diagrams. "The math checks out," Dongwu replied. "It is like they built their ships with a self-destruct button that they forgot about." Jisung began targeting the specific components that Dongwu had identified. Each shot was precise and carefully aimed, hitting power nodes and distribution relays that most enemies would never think to attack. The results were spectacular. One by one, Vaxari ships began losing power and drifting helplessly in space. Their weapons went offline, their shields failed, and their engines stopped working. Within 30 minutes, half the fleet was disabled. "Impossible," Kethvar said, watching his proud war fleet become a collection of powerless hulks. "They know our deepest secrets. They understand our technology better than we do ourselves." This was the moment when the war commander finally accepted the truth that he had been trying to deny. These humans were not lucky amateurs or reckless fools. They were something far more dangerous, a species so advanced and capable that they could turn any situation to their advantage. The children's songs continued to play in the background, a constant reminder of the confidence and fearlessness of human civilization. If their young ones could remain calm during such a battle, what hope did the Vaxari have of victory? "Sir?" Veltar approached his commander with obvious reluctance. "Long-range sensors confirmed that human reinforcements will arrive within the hour. They appear to be military vessels, much larger and more powerful than the one we have been fighting." Kethvar nodded slowly. The small ship had been a test, he realized now. The humans had sent a single vessel to evaluate Vaxari capabilities. before committing their main force. It was a brilliant strategy that showed patience, intelligence, and overwhelming confidence. "What are your orders, sir?" Veltar asked. Kethvar looked at the tactical display one more time. His fleet was crippled, his secrets were compromised, and enemy reinforcements were approaching. Continuing the battle would only result in the complete destruction of his forces. But there was another option, one that went against every instinct he possessed as a warrior. It was a choice that would change the course of history and reshape the balance of power in this part of the galaxy. "Prepare a formal communication to the human vessel," Kethvar said quietly. "Use the ancient protocols for honorable surrender." "Sir?" Veltar could not believe what he was hearing. "You heard me correctly," Kethvar replied. "We have encountered a superior force. To continue fighting would be pointless waste of Vaxari lives. Better to surrender with honor than to be destroyed with foolish pride." As his communication officer prepared the surrender message, Kethvar listened once more to the human children singing their innocent songs. Perhaps, he thought, defeat by such a species was not truly shameful. There might even be wisdom in learning from beings who could find peace in the midst of war. On the horizon's edge, the cadets were still enjoying their simulation, completely unaware that they were about to make history as the first humans to receive the surrender of an alien civilization. The formal surrender message from War Commander Kethvar came through on all communication channels, broadcast in both Vaxari and translated human language. The alien commander's voice was deep and filled with resigned dignity as he spoke the ancient words of honorable defeat. "To the commander of the human vessel," Kethvar began, "I am War Commander Kethvar of the Vaxari Empire, leader of the 3rd Battle Fleet. In recognition of your superior tactics, technology, and warrior spirit, I formally surrender my forces to your command. We submit to human authority and request terms of honorable capitulation." The 5 cadets stared at their communication screen in amazement. The alien commander appeared on their display, a tall figure with gray skin and proud bearing, dressed in elaborate military uniforms covered with medals and insignia. "Wow," Yuna breathed. "They really went all out for this simulation. That alien looks completely real." "The voice acting is incredible, too," Ji-sung added. "He sounds like he actually means it." Taeho straightened in his captain's chair, trying to look official. He had never received a surrender before, even in practice, and wanted to handle it properly. "This is Captain Kim Taeho of the Terran vessel Horizon's Edge," he replied formally. "We accept your surrender, Commander Kethvar. Please power down your weapons and prepare for boarding." What none of the cadets knew was that real human military ships were approaching fast. Commander Martinez and a full battle fleet had been scrambled the moment Lieutenant Minho confirmed that the simulation was actually a real encounter. They were racing toward the Centauri system, expecting to find cadet casualties and a diplomatic disaster. Instead, they arrived to find something unprecedented in human history: an alien war fleet surrendering to a training vessel. Martinez to, "All ships," the commander's voice crackled over the fleet communication system. "I am reading multiple alien vessels in the area, but they appear to be powered down. The Horizon's Edge is intact and responding normally. Can anyone explain what is happening here?" Captain Sarah Chen of the heavy cruiser Normandy was the first to respond. "Sir, I am detecting surrender broadcasts on all alien frequencies. It appears that our cadets have somehow defeated an entire enemy fleet." There was a long silence before Martinez replied. "That is impossible. Those are 3rd-year students in a training ship. Nevertheless, sir, The tactical readings are clear. The alien fleet has taken significant damage and their surrender appears genuine. On the Vaxari flagship, Kethvar was experiencing his own moment of revelation. His sensors had detected the approaching human reinforcements, and the readings were sobering. Each human vessel was larger and more advanced than anything in the Vaxari fleet. If the small training ship had been this capable, what could their full military accomplish? Sub-Commander Veltar, Kethvar called to his second-in-command. What do you make of these approaching human ships? Veltar studied his tactical display with growing awe. Sir, their technology appears to be several generations ahead of ours. Their shield signatures alone suggest capabilities we cannot match. If we had faced these vessels instead of the small one, the battle would have lasted minutes, not hours. This confirmed Kethvar's worst fears and greatest hopes. The humans had not sent their best ship to test his fleet. They had sent students in a training vessel and still achieved complete victory. The approaching fleet represented the true power of human civilization, and it was far beyond anything the Vaxari could challenge. Back on the horizon's edge, Sojin was studying the approaching ships with puzzlement. Those do not look like simulation vessels, she said. The design signatures match actual Terran military ships from our textbooks. Maybe the Academy is using real ship models for this test, Dongwu suggested. They want to make everything look as authentic as possible. Yuna was still working on the surrender negotiations with Kethvar. Using her limited knowledge of diplomatic protocol and alien languages, she was accidentally creating the framework for the most significant treaty in human history. We accept your surrender on behalf of the Terran Federation, she said, reading from her diplomacy textbook. Your forces will be granted safe passage to neutral space, and your people will be offered the opportunity to establish peaceful relations with humanity. What Yuna did not realize was that she was using formal treaty language that would be legally binding under interstellar law. Her casual reading from a school book was creating a document that would reshape galactic politics. The human negotiator is wise and generous, Kethvar replied through the translation system. The Vaxari Empire accepts these terms and pledges alliance with the Terran Federation. We recognize human authority in this region of space and request permission to establish diplomatic relations. Tejo looked at his team with pride. They had not only won an impossible simulation, but had also successfully conducted their first diplomatic negotiation. This was definitely going to earn them high marks from the instructors. Mission accomplished, he announced. I think we can call this simulation a complete success. The moment was interrupted by an incoming communication from Commander Martinez. His face appeared on their main screen, and his expression was a mixture of disbelief, pride, and barely controlled panic. Cadets, Martinez said carefully, I need you to listen very carefully to what I am about to tell you. You are not in a simulation. Repeat, you are not in a simulation. You have been engaged in actual combat with a real alien fleet. The 5 cadets stared at him in stunned silence. That is impossible, Sojin finally managed to say. We are in a training ship. We do not have real weapons or military authorization. Nevertheless, Martinez continued, you have just won humanity's first interstellar war and negotiated our first alien alliance. The Vaxari fleet you defeated is real, and their surrender is legally binding under galactic law. Dongwu looked down at his engineering console with new understanding. That explains why all the readings seemed so strange. These were not simulation parameters. We were actually modifying a real ship. And those were real alien databases I hacked into, he added with growing excitement. I have actual alien technology specifications. Ji-sung was staring at his weapons display. You mean I was really shooting at enemy ships? With real weapons? Yes, Martinez confirmed. And according to our tactical analysis, you achieved a 90% hit rate against targets that should have been impossible to damage. Military historians are going to study your battle tactics for decades. Yuna suddenly understood the magnitude of what had happened. The surrender negotiation I just conducted, that was real too? Completely real, Martinez replied. Congratulations, Cadet Choi. You have just negotiated humanity's first interstellar treaty. The Vaxari Empire is now our ally, and according to the terms you agreed upon, we have been granted authority over 3 star systems. Taeho felt his legs go weak. We actually fought aliens? And won? Not only won, Martinez said with a mixture of pride and amazement, but you achieved complete victory using nothing but creativity, teamwork, and basic academy training. The Vaxari are a warrior species that has conquered dozens of worlds. They have never surrendered to anyone before today. The communication screen switched to show War Commander Kethvar, who had been listening to the conversation through the translation system. The alien commander bowed deeply to the human cadets. Young warriors of Earth, Kethvar said formally, the Vaxari Empire is honored to surrender to opponents of such skill and courage. Your victory will be remembered in our histories for 1,000 generations. The 5 cadets looked at each other, finally understanding that their lives had just changed forever. They had gone from being students taking a test to being the heroes of humanity's first contact with alien civilization. So, Taeho said after a long moment of silence, do you think we passed the test? Commander Martinez smiled for the first time in hours. Cadets, I think it is safe to say that you have exceeded all expectations. Welcome to the real military. Earth is going to need officers like you for what comes next. As the human fleet moved into formation around the surrendered Vaxari ships, the 5 cadets began to realize that their training was over. They were no longer students preparing for possible futures. They were now the most experienced human, officers in alien combat, and the galaxy was waiting to see what they would do next. The simulation had ended, but their real adventure was just beginning.